Good evening, folks. Bit of interesting data received today in relation to employers forcing staff to take the test. So, one young lady was accompanied by her father, Great Harwood. That would be near Accrington, in Lancashire. Got in there, said it was an horrendous atmosphere, nobody in apart from all these excused people with the fluorescent jackets on, giving orders like you're in some kind of prison camp. Says I. Who are these all over our town? Your town. Happy to treat you, the public, with contempt. He asked one question to the staff. He asked, how many have been in here today for testing? A button was hit, and from what he said, aggression did commence. This is by those staff supposedly giving you a test because they care about you. Do they care about you? He asked one simple question. How many have been tested today? DEFCON 1 ensued. Okay? That is what you've got in your town right now. A ready-made concentration camp. A concentration of people forced to go there because their employer has decided to listen to Chalker Westminster and the talking heads and has thrust upon you a burden under threat of losing your job. That's severely limiting your capacity. It's a trespass, by the way. That's what it is. It's a trespass. So, as we enter the final countdown to Christmas, I think people should spend this season having a good look at yourself. Who are you? These are questions you're asking of yourself. There's nobody else listening. But you need to take stock of what's actually now implanted itself on our land, in our towns. Okay? These are not quite yet, but this leads to one end. Fascists, what we know as Nazis, National Socialists, Bolsheviks with an agenda. Okay, that's what you've got in these camps in your town, with fluorescent jackets on, little nurses' uniforms. But the people in them, these uniforms, are unclean, low grade, and can't wait to torture you. Under threat, of course. So you're under threat from your employer, and you're entering these places and being treated like you're subhuman by subhuman. I think there's a bit of projection going on there, to be quite frank. The point is, when are you going to say to yourself, enough is enough? Who the hell do you think you are? These people, who are you? We need to know who you are. We need to know where you live, where you come from, because what you're doing is incorrect. We don't care who you believe has told you you have to do it. You're being paid. Okay, it's your job. You have chosen to do that. Nobody's forced you. You've chosen. Okay. So these employers jumping on board with Childcare Westminster now are damaging your health. They are now under threat, discriminating against you who they deem is in need. Yet they are now stepping over an important line. They are now going to force you to destroy your body. The test itself is said to be a vaccination. You know, I think details out from around abouts is that 2% of the population have actually jumped onto this, have took the test, you know, downloaded the test and track and trace. 2%. What does that tell you? I'll tell you what it should tell you. You should be jumping for joy, because while you're sat at home looking at the telly and going, this is a load of bollocks, showing 98% of the population, they're with you. You're not a minority, you are the majority, although silent. Okay, that's where you are at right now, with the majority. It's the numpties that are running off to this. They're fear-ridden, you know, those that can't think for themselves. They cannot think for themselves. It's an impossibility, and they're that dependent on this state, this nanny, Bolshevik, socialist, communist superstate is now laying it out and telling you what to do. These officers impersonating the constabularies are issuing commands. Commands. Well, you only take commands when you're being paid. Why would they assume then they can do this? Then you've got to understand all about the title that you're operating on and under. Ignorant or not, you're still in that position. You've a lot to learn. You guys out there now, you're a majority. The statistics are showing that is the case. You have a choice. You can sit back idly while this monster gets bigger and bigger and destroys more and more of your fellow neighbours, your family. Yeah. Or you can start to look at yourself and ask yourself, why am I not playing a role in this to the contrary of it? What has happened to you that you believe you have no power when you have all the power? These are civil servants, servants of the public. That's you. You, the majority out there, that are saying, nah, I don't think so. Okay, you're the majority. That's what needs to be looked at. You need to start to reckon with yourself, because it's only a case of coming to understand certain concepts that they've removed from our education, also from the education of the lawyers and the barristers. We are missing a big chunk of our heritage in order we understand what it is we actually live under in this great nation, regardless of the nonsense it's had thrown at it through the centuries, because it headquartered the East India Companies, the inner city of London. All right. England is not the British Empire. The British Empire is this whole monster. But as we can see today with these numpties in these testing centres, there's a bad attitude going on amongst peoples today. And this monster is collecting them. It's collecting them to use against you. Against your children. Look, Christmas. After Christmas, what are they telling you now? We can't shut the schools. Why? is there a pandemic or not, isn't there? They want to roll out mass testing in the schools. They're going to vaccinate your children with the test. Okay. What has happened that you, as the mother and the father of your offspring, that you sit back and think, there's nothing I can do? Why do you do that? It's that very mechanic that's moving this machine. They know they've got you in a corner. The grammar you need to understand your position in this country has been removed. You're at a loss. You don't know what to grab onto in order to solve this problem that we've got building and set to get rather nasty next year if we don't do something about it. So, I called for militia last year and the calling has been answered. We don't play militia electronically. But suffice to say, when I say militia, I'm talking about men and women who understand their position in this nation. They understand what law is, so that they can recognise what law isn't. Okay, we need to educate those of us that do understand this situation, because we spent many years looking at it to find it. We will offer this information to you as time goes. You need to start making yourself known, okay, so that communications in the new year can commence and we can start to move in relation to stopping this. They've got a free rein. There is nothing to buffer what's going on today. You've got a player, Venetian. Okay, this guy's a fraud of the utmost calibre. Alright. His address for his little operation is Covent Garden. That's directly in front of Adelphi House. Okay. He's now shown himself in that he wants you to download a cryptocurrency app because he wants to pay you in a particular cryptocurrency that I've never heard of. There you go. This guy's a gatekeeper. He's keeping you busy and occupied in your minds to think things are going on, grabbing your attention. He's attracting, or so it would seem, high-level people, QCs, blah, blah. Queen's Counsel, ladies and gentlemen. They're not there for you. They're not there for him. They're there for the Queen, Queen's Counsel. Okay. Did you not see that? Good. I'm glad you've seen it now. So, we need to start making files on these people. You need to photograph the security, photograph as many of the staff as you can, get registration numbers photographed. If you can get names, get names. We need to know who these people are and where do they live. Because if you're going to bring a case in law against anybody, you need the name. And to communicate to serve, you need their address. Okay? So that's what we're talking about when we speak of militia, and that is men and women who understand what the law is and what the law isn't. So that every time you have any encounters with these dipsticks, you know exactly what you're talking about. There's a lot of people trying it. Unfortunately, they're missing little bits and they're making mistakes. It carries the game on. But as you can see, if you look at some of these videos, especially the one from Sainsbury's, these people are not comfortable doing this. The copper were, because he's a youngster, he doesn't know. But as soon as the gentleman who was under attack in Sainsbury's mentioned it was reminiscent of Papers, Please, the counsellor, who was of the age to remember exactly what that brings to the fore, and that is Nazi Germany. The younger generations haven't been brought up with that. They don't have a recognition of what it is and what it did. The older generations, we do. And that counsellor recognised that and was uneasy from that very moment. The coppers, ego. They're arguing with you. They are commanding, they are gaining authority over you at all points. That's what they're doing. They're not talking law, they're talking garbage. But because you guys do not understand how to respond, it gets too far. You don't need to go that far when you understand where you're at, because once you show them you understand where you're at, game over. Game over. So what I'm saying is we need to re-understand and relaunch England, our laws, our common law, which also means accepting that the common law of which you all live under is taken from the Bible. 10 Commandments. It's very clear, it's simple. Don't break them, you're within the law. Then you can break into the realm and understand what is law, who services it, and how do you know that you're keeping within it. Simple. You just need to learn that. That's grammar we can give you. It's grammar we can give you. Because when you gain confidence in yourself that you are in the right, you're correct, and your standing is the only standing in law in whatever encounter you're having, you communicate that will to all concerned. But when you're backtracking and batting, these guys, they're like parasites, they're like predators, and they're communicating vocally with you, but they're picking up off you your feelings, your fear level. That's what they're feeding off, and the more you show that fear, the more you get the garbage coming out of these private security dressed in police regalia, which is a criminal offence, by the way. You cannot impersonate a constable. You've got funny hats on. I didn't see any crest. And a funny coloured banding going on. Who are these people? You don't need to be talking to these people. And if they lay so much as a finger on you, they're in trouble. If they arrest you because they're not constables, that's kidnap. If they take it off, it's robbery because you've seen it. It's not a theft because you saw it happen. That's robbery. You won't get that by taking it into the legal world. You won't get the result you want. You have to take it in law. That's the way forward in this country if we want to save it, if we want to prevent our children either being thrust off into World War III, which they look like they're very busy creating at the moment. I've had a report that Russia and China have actually engaged in combat in a disputed territory in the far east of Russia, and Chinese soldiers have been killed. Trump has sent off naval forces to intercept Chinese vessels heading in the Atlantic. You are getting reports that what Trump has actually done is wheeled in the Navy to surround America. Yet Canada is the weak point. Canada is completely city controlled, and great swathes of its land are owned by the woman holding the office of monarch in this country, who many of us now are beginning to see as a possibility that has now moved over to Canada with the youngest, Harry. What's going on? Well, there's a lot going on. And Canada have been training Chinese troops in Arctic warfare. That's what always gave the West an advantage, because we live in cold climes and we were expert in that kind of warfare. You've got Canada, city-owned, training Chinese troops. So in the bigger picture, what you can then deduce is that this entire charade of pandemic is about behaviour change. It's about completely and utterly changing your behaviour as a people in readiness for this new system that they are going to launch on the world under a priesthood with a king, a Messiah king, whose word is God, because when you look at their doctrines, they are to replace God. They're not shy about it. This is where they're at. And this group controls China. This group has also decided many years ago, when they were building it up through the Bolsheviks, behind the Iron Curtain that the West wasn't seeing, was all about creating the corporation that is China. And we're not talking about the Chinese people here. They're a people like we are, and they're suffering the corporation. But this corporation is being built up specifically for one purpose: mop up. Mop up because the populations in all the other nations have become so inept, so unable to think, act, and move outside what is dictated by your respective governments. Hell will be unleashed in there. You've got madness down the line. It's not in anybody's interests to carry on by doing nothing, by not opposing this nonsense. The laws exist. The nation exists. It's an invocation of that will put this nation back and oppose all this nonsense that's going on. That's what it is. It's a great nation made up of great laws. So that would be my message as we get off into Christmas. You know, who are you? And you're asking yourself that question. Because you might be surprised at the answer that comes back. You just remember who you are and not what you've been told to be. That is my message. Before they make a mess of a lot of people, a lot of children, with this nonsense being enforced now by employers who are liable. Keep that in mind, people. Names, addresses, registration numbers of everything. You need to start filing who these collaborators are. Because not only are they collaborating, they're making money at your expense. And you're ultimately paying for them as the taxpayer because they're following the guidelines of a government that no longer sees itself as operating for you, it sees itself as sovereign. That's corporation, corporate fascism gone full circle. So I'll shut my gob and I'll say, militia is the way. Armed with the law, understanding your position so that you understand what you're facing. Once that starts to sink in, it becomes very easy to want to rebuff this garbage. So with that, I will say till the next time.